What's up, everybody? We're here to go over UFC Denver. Rose Namajunas taking on Tracy Cortez now. But real quick, I wanted to go over the results for the last two cards. For the UFC Saudi Arabia card, obviously, Azaitar, that fight dropped off. Bosserat didn't fight, so this ended up just being a play on Haparask at like minus 230, I think. And that was a one-unit play that hit. Kang looked terrible. Should probably retire. But that was only a small quarter unit play there, so he killed that one. Azaitar didn't fight, and then I had a small plus money play on Volkan Mozdemir that hit. So I came out with a little bit of money. I won a little money live betting on that card as well. Not too much to brag about there though. And then on the next card, had a lot of stuff. Change and get moved around. Originally had a Olberg and Tatsura, parlay, and Olberg dropped off, so it's just Tatsura. And that was a play at like minus 340. It was a one-unit play, so, it didn't pay very much, but... and then I had a plus money play, a quarter-unit play on John Silva, and that one hit. And then Lopez's fight dropped off. I originally had a half-unit play on him at minus 135. That dropped off during the middle of the event. Was kind of disappointed, so I ended up putting another play in on him at minus 250 against Dan Ige. That was a one-unit play. That one hit as well. And then I had a play on Michael Page, and that was a close fight, man. I thought it could have gone either way. Gary definitely won the first round. Page definitely won the second round. The third round, it could have gone either way. Gary just kind of turned into a grappler and was kind of holding on for dear life, so he didn't have to deal with Page on the feet. But either way, man, I came out with a good bit of profit there, and I also had a parlay that hit. 9-fight parlay, almost $800. Tatsura, Bidet, Robertson, Talbot, Pfeiffer, Chason, Lopez, even though that one dropped off because that was against Brian Ortega. Delice and John Silva. And this is one of the ones, my posted ones didn't hit. I don't remember who killed them. I don't remember who killed my parlays originally, but this isn't one of the ones I posted originally. I rebuilt this one. It was the only one I rebuilt on that card. Luckily it hit, but I have decided that I'm going to stop putting in, because I usually have like 3 parlays, for each card that I'll post ahead of time, and usually those aren't the ones that hit. Usually it's the one I rebuild after that hits, where I'm a little bit more careful, So I decided from now on, I'm just going to make one parlay and try to keep it simple and, something I'm more confident in than building one small parlay, one bigger parlay, and then one even bigger parlay, chasing a whole bunch of money, because that eats into your profit, man. And I'll have one hit, maybe once a month or once or twice, every 2 months, but it really all kind of ends up, unless you hit for a whole bunch of money, a few $1,000s, it really, ends up kind of evening itself out when you're losing $100 on parlays every weekend. So I decided I'm just going to put one in from now on and, hope for the best. So, but at least that way it won't cost me as much money. And, I came out with a lot of profit on the last card. That was a really good card for me. Let's move over to this current card. And I'm sorry that, this is, I usually get my videos out way earlier than this, but I was waiting. I broke down this whole fight card, and then a whole bunch of the fights got canceled, and there were already only, I don't remember how many fights were on there originally when I did the card. It wasn't that many, and then even more fights dropped off, and so I was kind of waiting on them to add more and whatever. So finally they got it up to 11 fights, so I'm going to go ahead and do the video and get it out. Not a whole lot on this card that I like from a betting standpoint. Hey, but either way, man, please like and subscribe, guys. It'll help me out a lot. If you're new to the channel, what I do is I go through and I give out, my picks for each of the fights. And at the end of the video, I give out my bets, parlays, stuff like that. I don't ever charge anybody money for anything. I don't, like doing that stuff. I don't like people who do that stuff, but I probably should because, I mean, I'm doing this for free, but whatever, man. Uh, where was I at? So yeah, and if you're not interested in watching my videos, you just want to see my pics in my bets, you can go to my social medias. Highkick_fight pics is Instagram and TikTok, and then there's a Facebook group on Facebook. High Kick Fight Pics on Facebook, and yeah, it's easy to find. Post your bets, anything MMA related you want to post in that group, post it in there. I don't like being the only one constantly posting stuff in there, but I often just share like upcoming fights, whenever fights are announced, I'll share that or whatever, and then I'll post my bets and stuff closer to the event, the fights. So, and yeah, man, normally I would be doing an ad for Bet Us right now, and I'm kind of in talks with them, man. I'm also in talks with somebody else just because I've been trying to get them to listen to me about some things that they could improve about their sports book, so that more people would want to, be involved in it. And I use them, but it's just kind of one of those books that I ended up having a good chunk of money on, so I use it, ever so often, and have just kind of had money on there. There are definitely a couple books that I use, more than that. But either way, I'm in talks with them and trying to figure out, if I don't know, maybe I need to use, promote for somebody else, or whatever. But I'll talk more about that later on. If I end up, not working with them anymore. But yeah, I'll post the link as always. If you're interested in helping out the channel, helping me out, putting some money in my pocket, you can use my link and it'll get you a good, bonus on all your, your first 3 deposits and all that. And like I said, it just puts about $100 in my pocket if you sign up and make the minimum deposit. So, do that, make a parlay, whatever, just if you want to help out. Yeah, my birthday is July 16th, and it seems like every year there's a shitty card, my birthday week. Last year it was Holly Holm versus Bueno Silva. Wasn't a very good card. Definitely not a good main event. Yeah, so and this card absolutely sucks, for the most part. I was really irritated when I looked at this card, man. I kind of just wanted to not do the video, especially before they added the last 3 fights that they've put on. There was just no good fights on this card. They finally added Drew Dober and John Silva and Montel Jackson and Devon Blackshear and what was the other one? Joshua Van and Charles Johnson. So those are 3 decent fights. Kind of saved the card. But I feel sorry for all the people that bought tickets to, to this card and whatever. And I don't know, it's just not a very good one, man. There were some better fights, and they all fell off. And I'm sure they'll probably still add some. We still got a week or so before the card happens, but I'm sure they'll add more. And if that's the case, I'll try to do my best. I'll post on my social medias, update the pics, whatever. But I'll stop rambling now and get on with the card. I don't think there's anything else I need to bring up or talk about. Yeah, we had all these fights fall out. Nazim Salikhov, I was going to have a play on him against Marquel Medeiros, and originally it was Chris Duncan versus Nazim Salikhov. We had Drew Dober versus Mike Davis originally. Davis dropped out. Namajunas versus Macy Barber. Mike Malott versus Gilbert Urbina. That one dropped out. So yeah, my notes are a mess, and I'm going to be doing a lot of scrolling, trying to locate these fights because I did all this work, and half the fights didn't even make it on the card. So the only problem with me doing my stuff so early is a lot of the times, the cards fall apart, and everybody's wondering what the hell, Anyway, first up, we got Montel Jackson taking on Devon Blackshear, and Montel Jackson is 32 years old. He is 5'10" with a 75.5-inch reach. He is 13-2. And 7-2 in the UFC, and he's a -140 favorite. 7 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. Never been finished. He's a huge 135er, but so is Blackshear. Jackson's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. I think Jackson, he might have the advantage on the feet, at least with the boxing, with the hands. He might have a power advantage as well. He's got a lot more knockouts than Blackshear. Jackson has very good wrist control. He's got giant hands. This fight will come down to if he can stuff the takedowns or not. Because in the past, that's been his weakness, and that's how he's been beaten. His 2 losses were to good wrestlers. I think Brett Johns and Ricky Simone. Jackson is very good at using his reach and fighting long off the jab. He has a lot of wins in the UFC, but the only impressive win is the win over Julio Arce. And the rest are over guys that either couldn't get a win in the UFC or guys that are older in their career, getting towards the end of their career, like Ronnie Yaya, Brian Kelleher. He hasn't really had the toughest run yet, in the UFC. Where was I at? He did have a long amateur career as well. He went 8-1 as an amateur, and all of his wins were by finish. And Jackson was supposed to fight a few weeks ago, so he's been in camp preparing for a guy who was going to try and take him down. He was going to fight Bassarat. And, Blackshear has taken this fight on short notice, so we don't know how prepared he's going to be. It's going to be I had a lot of trouble picking all three of these fights due to the short notice that they added. Jackson has good knees in the clinch. Jackson shows 54% striking accuracy with 64% striking defense, 71% takedown accuracy with 69% takedown defense. He averages 3.42 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he lands on average 3.36 strikes per minute while absorbing 1.41. So really good striking defense, doesn't get hit that much. And he's taking on Damon Blackshear. He is 29 years old. He is 5'10 with a 72. It says 72.2 inch reach. I just went off 72 pretty much. I actually kind of, dropped a half inch off just to say 3-inch reach advantage for Jackson. But where was that? He's 14-6-1 and 2-2-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 115 underdog. 2 wins by knockout, 9 wins by submission. This guy's very well-rounded, great Muay Thai striking, very good grappler, never been finished. And even though he's got way less fights in the UFC than Jackson, I think Blackshear has definitely fought the tougher competition. He fought Bassarat, he fought Batista, he fought Yusuf Zalal. And he did lose those fights. His wins in the UFC have been over guys who haven't had a lot of success in the UFC. But that was a very impressive, twister that he got on Jose Johnson. It was nasty. And Blackshear has a wrestling background, great trips and single leg takedowns, strong with his body lock, really good submissions, nice sweeps. He's not afraid to go to the ground with anyone, and sometimes that's hurt him in some of his fights, But I don't think it would be it would hurt him in this fight. Jackson is heavily favored on Tapology. It's the short notice for Blackshear that worries me. Otherwise, I would probably pick him for sure, and I'm still going to. But I've been going back and forth with myself on this one. And usually whenever I'm having a real hard time with fights, I usually just go ahead and go with the underdog. And I do think that Blackshear has a big advantage on the ground. Really good, way better jiu-jitsu. The only reason I'm not confident is just the short notice for Blackshear. So I'm going to take Blackshear to win by decision. I think he's going to go out there and use his grappling and control Jackson on the ground. Next up, we got Joshua Van taking on Charles Johnson. And Joshua Van is 22 years old, 5'5" with a 65-inch reach. He is 10-1 and 3-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 175 favorite. Van has great boxing. We all know that. 6 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. His only loss was by submission, and he's had fight after fight fall out recently, and this fight was kind of thrown together on short notice as well. And but I would imagine he's been in camp this whole time preparing for a fight. There's a lot of hype on Joshua Van. I mean, how could you not be a fan of him? The way he fights is always very exciting. He tends to pick up the pace the more the fight goes on. But you have to keep in mind that so far he's only beaten guys who never won a fight in the UFC or guys that are no longer in the promotion. In my opinion, Zhalgas Zhumagulov is a decent fighter. We saw he just couldn't put it together in the UFC, man. He always had close fights, and he wasn't able to dominantly win his fights. So while I do consider him a pretty good fighter, I think he should still be in the UFC. He didn't have a lot of success in the UFC. So how good is Van really? I do think he's pretty good, but we just haven't seen his takedown defense tested against a legit fighter yet, and this is a very tough fight for him. He's going to be at a big size disadvantage in this fight. I do love his boxing. He throws great combinations, long combinations. He's super fast with his punches, great cardio, goes to the body a lot, fights aggressively. We have seen him have a little bit of trouble at times. He got dropped by Kevin Borjas. I think Kevin, isn't it Kevin Borjas? Yeah, Kevin Borjas. Um, and then Felipe Buenas had a lot of success early, and Van has good in and out movement. We saw him take him down by Buenas as well, but he was able to get to kind of get back up, and I think he ended up on top. I think he used a sweep or something. Uh, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Charles can take this guy down. Both these guys have great boxing, but two completely different styles. Van, he keeps his punches short and in tight, whereas Charles fights loose and long and uses a lot of like crazy head movement. Van shows 53% striking accuracy with 60% striking defense, 43% takedown accuracy with 79% takedown defense, and he averages 1.14 takedowns per fight, and he lands on average 9.8 strikes per minute while absorbing 5.77. So puts out a lot of volume, does get hit a lot, mainly probably because he's always kind of plodding forward, getting in the pocket, so he can land his shots. And he's taking on Charles Johnson. He is 33 years old. He's 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. He is 15-6 and 4-4 in the UFC, and he's a plus 145 underdog. 5 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission. Never been finished. He's fought the tougher competition, has the better wins, and he's had kind of a late resurgence in his UFC career. I don't think most people could beat Azat Maxim, and Charles did. And Charles just beat Jake Hadley a month and a half ago. Johnson has slick boxing himself, good head movement. He's good at rolling with punches and countering. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage and 4 inches of height. He actually has some decent wrestling and takedowns himself. He throws good calf kicks, great head movement. His takedown defense has gotten way better because his whole career guys have just been constantly trying to take him down. I don't think he's going to have to worry about in this fight. He's got great knees in close. He's the more well-rounded fighter out of these two for sure. And if this fight wasn't on such short notice, I would be picking Johnson easily all day. And I still probably will. You'll find out in a minute. I don't know why I do that. Yeah, I'm going to pick him anyway. I don't care what anybody thinks. He's way more experienced, long amateur career. He's been there, done that. He has the better kicks out of these two. He uses his jab very well. He switches stances well, uses the switch to set up his shots. He shows 53% striking accuracy with 60% striking defense, 23% takedown accuracy with 67% takedown defense. He averages half a takedown per fight, and he lands on average 4.48 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.16. I think Johnson should use his wrestling here. If Johnson could take Azat Maxim down, he can definitely take Van down. Like I said, not super confident because of the short notice, but I'm going to go with the underdog again and take Charles to win by decision. He's got the better wins. He's fought the tougher competition, and he's kind of had like a late resurgence in his career, man. His last 2 fights, he's looked great. Next up, we got Josh Fremd taking on Andre Petroski. Now I got to find this fight in my notes. There it is. Joshua Fremd is 30 years old. He is 6'4" with a 76-inch reach. He is 11-5 and 2-3 in the UFC, and he's a plus 120 underdog. I think the line's actually a pick 'em now. I think they're both minus 110, which I find pretty crazy because it wasn't very long ago that Andre Petroski would be like a minus 300, 400 against this guy. 4 wins by knockout for Josh and 4 wins by submission. 4 inches taller, 3 inches of reach advantage. He will have the advantage in the striking in this fight for sure, and he's fighting a guy who's been knocked out twice in a row, so he has that going for him. If he can stuff the takedowns, he could absolutely win this fight. Don't know if his takedown defense will be good enough to stop Petroski, but it is possible. We did see Josh show off his grappling against Cedricus Dumas, but if Fremd got submitted by Trayshawn Gore, I definitely think he could get submitted by Petroski as well. Josh throws good teep kicks, good kicks to the body. He'll have to use his height and his reach in this fight if he wants to win. But he does have a terrible percentage on his takedown defense. He shows 43% striking accuracy with 48% striking defense, 25% takedown accuracy with 32% takedown defense. Not a good thing to have against Andre Petroski. He lands on average 2.93 strikes per minute while absorbing 2.63. And he's taking on Andre Petroski. He is 33 years old. He's 6 foot tall with a 73-inch reach. He is 10-3 and 5-2 in the UFC. He's a minus 145 favorite. 4 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission as well. All three of his losses have been by knockout. I'm not a fan of this guy. His striking is terrible. You can tell he's really uncomfortable on the feet. He just kind of throws big, loaded up on shots. Most of his wins have been over guys that aren't in the UFC anymore or have struggled to get wins in the UFC. But he does have better wins than Josh Fremd. Aside from from Meerschaert, yeah, most of them aren't in the UFC anymore. And he barely won that fight. So he's known for his grappling. You know, he has dangerous submissions, good takedowns, very strong with his body lock, terrible head movement and footwork. I think in the eyes of the UFC, this is supposed to be an easy fight for him. You know, I think they want him to win this fight. But we have seen a lot of holes in his game in his last two fights, and he was throwing naked kicks and getting caught with punches, you know, and he has seemed to get tired as well in the third round a few times. But he does have a big advantage on the ground here, good top pressure. He probably should win this fight with his wrestling, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got knocked out again. He shows 50% striking accuracy with 52% striking defense, 54% takedown accuracy with 80% takedown defense, averages 4.32 takedowns per fight and 2.27 submissions per fight, and he lands on average 3.50 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.8. And I'm picking Petroski to win this fight by submission round two, but I mean, aside from not putting any serious money on it, I got him in my one parlay, and that's all. Next up, we got Viviane Araújo taking on Jasmine Jasudavicius. Yeah, man, not a whole lot of great fights on this card, honestly. Viviane Araújo is 37 years old. She is 5'4" with a 68-inch reach. She is 12-6 and 6-5 in the UFC, and she's a plus 125 underdog. 3 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission. She's never been submitted, but has been knocked out one time. She's coming off a somewhat competitive fight with Natalia Silva. I thought she had a good first round in that fight anyway. She's only lost to the girls at the top of the division, but outside of Jennifer Maia, not really any impressive wins. She hits hard, has good Muay Thai striking. She's strong in the clinch. This is a big step up in competition for Jasmine for sure. It could be a close fight, but you know, I think Arroyo will have to keep it on the feet where she has the advantage, and we have seen her taken down a few times in the past, but she has fought in a way tougher competition now. These two, she fights very aggressive, stays pushing forward and throwing hard shots. I do think she has the advantage in the striking on the feet, and definitely a power advantage. She shows 47% striking accuracy with 57% striking defense, 40% takedown accuracy with 79% takedown defense. She averages 1.76 takedowns per 15 minutes, and she lands on average 4.12 strikes per minute while absorbing 4.96. She's taking on Jasmine Jasudavicius. She is 35 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. 10-3 and 4-2 in the UFC, and she's a minus 150 favorite. 2 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission, never been finished. She's taller, but they have the same reach. She has an advantage with her wrestling, and she will need to use it here. She's not going to win a striking battle with Arroyo. She has great trips and body lock takedowns, and if she comes out here and is the Jasmine that beat Miranda Maverick, she could definitely dominate this fight. You know, she had an easy fight last time out, but this will be a true test for her. I could see Arroyo having a lot of success early in this fight with her power and her striking. Jasmine has good cardio. She can push a decent pace as well. It's a close fight, man, probably. Jasmine shows 45% striking accuracy with 51% striking defense, 38% takedown accuracy with 80% takedown defense, averages 2.16 takedowns per fight, and lands on average 3.95 strikes per minute while absorbing 4.3. And I kind of want to take the underdog here, but you know I've been going back and forth on this one as well, and I'll probably stay away from it altogether. But I'll take Jasmine to win by decision using her wrestling, but wouldn't be surprised if she loses this fight. Yeah, I've been working nights, guys. So if you can't tell, I'm a little bit tired and out of it, and all the changes and stuff going back and forth on this card. I kind of ended up with a lot of my notes being a little bit shorter than normal. Just kind of out of frustration, you know. Next up, we got Luana Santos taking on Maria Agapova. And Luana Santos is 24 years old. She is 5'6" with a 67-inch reach. She is 7-1 and 2-0 in the UFC, and she's a minus 210 favorite. One win by knockout, 3 wins by submission, never been finished, but is relatively inexperienced. She has a judo background. Santos can be a little wild on the feet, but is accurate with her punches. It seemed like every punch that she landed was hurting Juliana Miller in that fight. She has good sweeps, dangerous jiu-jitsu. Everything has looked good on the regional scene. Grappling seems to be on point. She's young. She's going to be making improvements constantly. This is definitely going to be a striker versus grappler matchup kind of here. While Santos isn't bad on the feet, Agapova is a dangerous, legit striker with big power as well. So Santos is going to have to use her judo and her jiu-jitsu in this fight, in my opinion, for sure. And she should have big advantages in those areas. If you look at Agapova's career. But yeah, Santos has looked great thus far in the UFC. She fought up a weight class against Stephanie Egger and got the win. She'll have to be very careful on the feet in this fight, though. And she's taking on Maria Agapova. She is 27 years old, 5'6", with a 68.5-inch reach. She is 10-4 and 2-3 in the UFC, and she's a plus 170 underdog. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a big fan of Agapova's. She seems like a crazy lady, has a reputation for doing a lot of wild shit. So she's somebody that seems like somebody I would hang out with, But all of her losses in the UFC have been by finish, but her wins have been by finish as well. And she has 3 wins by knockout and 5 wins by submission. She's going to have a 1.5-inch reach advantage, and it's been 2 years since we've seen her. And I follow her on Instagram, and she's been working really hard on her grappling. And she's still only 27, so she has a lot of room for improvement. But she has, great kickboxing, but she has always kind of had that killer be killed style of fighting. And it makes for exciting fights for sure, but she's going to have to learn to be more patient and technical and let the finish come to her. And I do think this is a bad matchup for her, no doubt. I'm going to be secretly rooting for her to win, but I have to pick Santos to win this fight by submission. I'm going to go with submission, late submission, round 3. Yeah. Well, actually, I can't root for Agapova because I ended up having a little bit of money on Santos. So, next up, we got Drew Dober taking on John Silva. And I just won some money on Silva as an underdog, a few days ago. So, Drew Dober is 35 years old. He is 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. He is 27-13 and 13-9 in the UFC, and he's a minus 155 favorite. 11 wins by knockout, 9 wins by submission. Dober is one of my favorite fighters, and I like that, he's still clearly making improvements this late into his career, mainly in his grappling. He did better than I thought he would in his last fight against Moicano. He had his moments. Dober's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. He's 1 inch taller, and he's been in camp, for quite a while here. Whereas Silva just fought a few days ago, so not sure if I like that or not. Silva's going to be kind of losing a lot of the advantages he had physically, at featherweight by going up to lightweight here. Silva is normally a huge 145er and has a big power advantage due to his size advantage and his strength and everything. But I don't think Silva will necessarily have a power advantage over Dober. But both these guys hit really hard, and both these guys knock everybody out. And I honestly don't know which way to go on this fight, man. Dober has fought the tougher competition, has the better wins, probably has the more technical striking, but Silva's never been knocked out before. So, Silva also hasn't fought anybody with the kind of knockout record like Drew Dober either. So this is just a really tricky fight, man. And it's a hard pick really for me. And Dober's going to be taking on John Silva. He is 13-2. I'm doing this out of order now. 27 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. He is 13-2 and 2-0 in the UFC. He's a plus 135 underdog. Like I said, just won money on Silva a few days ago. So it's tempting to jump on this line again. And, 10 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. I think his best bet would be to look for the takedowns in this fight, since that's been Dober's weakness in the past. But Silva doesn't really appear to want to fight that way, man. He likes to strike. He likes to knock people out. He really does tend to rely on his power more than his technical ability. And it was a little scary in his last fight because Charles was kind of lighting him up, with his speed and his accuracy, in that fight before, Charles couldn't withstand the power, but he was having a lot of success against Silva, and he was just way faster and more accurate, landing a lot of leg kicks and everything. We don't know what Silva's going to look like at lightweight and how and how he's going to look just having fought a few days ago. Not really any recovery time or anything. I know he didn't take a whole lot of damage, but he definitely ate a whole lot of leg kicks and stuff in that fight. So a little worried about that. Um, he is fighting Dober. This is basically a fight at home for Dober in Denver. So the cards are kind of stacked against Silva, but we have seen Dober knocked out before, man, and Silva has that nasty uppercut, uses good forward pressure. His cardio's held up so far. This is such a close fight, man, and y'all, if y'all haven't noticed already on this card, whenever I struggle to pick a fight, and it's really close and the line's really close, I usually go ahead and just go with the value and take the dog, and that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take the plus money on Silva to win by knockout round two, but would not be surprised if Dober pulls out a big knockout at home here. I won't be mad either way. I do have a small, tiny bit of money on Silva, but not enough to get terribly mad at if he loses. I only put $100 on him, so um, this is just a good fight for the fans, really, and it makes it even more exciting to have a little bit of money involved. I guess is why I did that. Next up, we got Christian Rodriguez taking on Julian Erosa. If I can find this fight, wherever it may be in my notes, at pages and pages of notes. Sorry. I didn't want to erase the notes, man, because any bit of notes that you have on a fighter can always come in handy later, because that's the first thing that I do. I have a tablet, man, that's got, what have I done, like 80 videos or something like that, and I save every bit of notes. So I'll go back through, the first thing I do when I'm breaking down a fight is I go back through and I go through all my old notes, that I have on the fighter, and and pick and choose things that may be useful, against this opponent that they're currently fighting. So, but Christian Rodriguez is 26 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach. He is 11-0 and 4-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 275 favorite. 3 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission, never been finished. He's had some great wins in the UFC. There's going to be a major size difference here, and it's hard to believe that these guys are even in the same weight class. Rodriguez is very well rounded, nice boxing, does have some holes with his takedown defense, but he still usually finds a way to win. Either way. He has good wrestling himself, great jiu-jitsu. He outstruck the kickboxer and Cameron Saman, in that fight. Great counter striking, good head movement and footwork, good knees and elbows in close, great throws and trip takedowns as well. Good submission defense. Has good balance, doesn't overthrow on his shots and fall around or stumble around. He throws good straight shots, good timing, nice 1-2 down the middle. He's good at staying just out of the way of the punches and countering. And he should win this fight, but sometimes that size difference is too much for people. Rodriguez shows 48% striking accuracy with 58% striking defense, 55% takedown accuracy with 67% takedown defense, and he averages 1.14 takedowns per fight, and he lands on average 3.45 strikes per minute while absorbing 2.28. He's taking on Julian Erosa, and I kind of have like a soft spot, for Erosa, because I do think he is a really good fighter, and the thing is like his chin's a little bit compromised, because he has been knocked out a whole lot, and even I think I had money on him in his last fight, just a little small play on him, and he went out there and almost got knocked out, but then he came back and got the submission. So, he's got a lot of good wins. He's beat a lot of tough people. And if he can guard that chin, he has a chance to beat anybody, really. So he is 34 years old. He is 6'1" with a 74.5-inch reach. He is 29-11 and 7-7 in the UFC, and he's a plus 220 underdog. 11 wins by knockout, 13 wins by submission. Most of his losses have been by knockout, and that's, like I said, the only downside to putting faith in Erosa, is the chin. And he's never been submitted, but he's got some great wins. Like I said, he beat Sean Woodson, Nate Landwehr, Charles Jourdain, Hakeem Dawodu, Jamal Emmers, and most of those wins are by finish as well. So he's accomplished a lot in his career, man. Some serious wins. He's a huge featherweight, while Rodriguez is a very small one. Erosa's going to have a 3.5-inch reach advantage, 6 inches of height. He has dangerous chokes, good kickboxing. Even though he got dropped, in his last fight, Man, he has a really good guillotine. Really tricky submissions. He's really good at using his long arms, to set up those chokes. Great power in his strikes, dangerous knees in close because he's so tall. Great dirty boxing and uppercuts in the clinch. I don't know that he has a ton of advantages in this fight. Maybe he possibly sinks in a choke, but I think his best bet would be to try to use his reach and stay on the outside. Use his reach, try to use that long jab and kicks and keep Rodriguez back and possibly look for a takedown or a submission. He shows 49% striking accuracy with 48% striking defense, 46% takedown accuracy with 59% takedown defense. So not very good takedown defense himself. He averages 1.63 takedowns per fight, and he lands on average 6.14 strikes per minute while absorbing 6.29. So he puts out good volume, gets hit way too much. It's hard to go with a guy who's been knocked out 7 times, in his career, and so I'm going to go with Rodriguez to win. I'm taking a win by knockout, round 2. But I don't know, man. Erosa's dangerous, man. So don't. I know it sounds crazy because he's been knocked out so much, but don't get heavily invested against him, guys. Probably because you never know with him. He wins a lot of fights that he shouldn't. So can be scary. Next up, we got Cody Brundage taking on Abdul Razak alhassan. Grab some water real quick. Cody Brundage is 30 years old. He's 6 foot tall with a 72-inch reach. He is 10-6 and 4-5 in the UFC, and he's a plus 110 underdog. 5 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. Not really high on this guy at all. He does have a wrestling background, but it's just confusing with him sometimes because you never know what you're going to get. He has that wrestling background. He's supposedly a really good wrestler, but he got out wrestled by Cedricus Dumas, who doesn't have a wrestling background. And controlled that whole fight, by Dumas. So I kind of think he got lucky with that slam against Zachary Reese because we saw how good Reese is, after that. And he only beat Malkoun. I think the only reason he's still in the UFC is because he won that fight against Malkoun by disqualification. I think, he was getting the crap beat out of him during that fight, and I think that if Malkoun had won, they probably would have cut Cody from the UFC. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. That's just really, honestly, what I would think would have happened, because he was on a bad streak right there. Where was that? He's dangerous early, man. His power. He does have decent power. He knocked out Treson Gore. Doesn't really have good cardio, unless he's made some changes. But what we saw, he hasn't had good cardio. Doesn't stand a chance on the feet here, I don't think. But he is explosive early. He could land a big shot. He'll have to use his wrestling to get a win here. Otherwise he's probably going to get knocked out. And I guess it is possible he could. We saw alhassan taken down by Pyfer, in his last fight. But Pyfer's huge, man. And he's really good, especially early. I guess, I do think alhassan has the better cardio and could get a late finish, even if Brundage managed to control him for the first 2 rounds. Cody shows 54% striking accuracy with 43% striking defense. 53% takedown accuracy with 69% takedown defense. He averages 2.33 takedowns per fight, and he lands on average 1.62 strikes per minute. That's a terrible number while absorbing 2.30. Doesn't get hit a whole lot, but doesn't land very much either. Probably because he's been taken down a lot in his fights, or he is always going for takedowns, or whatever, man. So, I seem to be missing a. I guess it got moved around. Sorry. I'll have my shit together next time, guys. He's taking on Abdul Razak alhassan. He is 38 years old. He's 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. He is 12-6 and 6-6 in the UFC, and he's a minus 130 favorite. 12 wins by knockout, no wins by submission. He's only been submitted once. He has some wins over guys that I think would beat Brundage for sure. He's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage on the feet. He's got a really big power advantage too, honestly, on the feet. And he's the better striker. He has the better kicks for sure. Those are his best weapons. And he's been using kind of a style here lately where he clinches guys a lot up against the cage and kind of wears on them and that would work particularly well against Cody Brundage because Cody has gotten tired in the past. Um, he's built like a tank, man, and he will switch stances back and forth at times. Really good kicks, powerful kicks. He's good at scrambling, back to his feet when he's taken down. And as long as he can stuff the takedowns, he'll win this fight. I know he doesn't have the best takedown defense percentage, but I've never really been impressed by anything, that Brundage has done as far as, his wrestling. Abdul shows 48% striking accuracy with 56% striking defense. 38% takedown accuracy with 51% takedown defense. He averages 1.78 knockdowns per fight, averages just under one takedown per fight, and he lands on average 3.37 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.99. I'm taking alhassan to win this fight by knockout round one, but, honestly, who cares? I guess that might be an exciting fight while it lasts, but I wasn't very excited to have to, research that fight. Next up, we got Gabriel Bonfim taking on loosa. And Gabriel is 26 years old, about to be 27, 6'1" with a 72.5-inch reach. He is 15-1 and 2-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 350 favorite. So this is another guy who kind of got exposed a little bit in his last fight. He was very dominant early against Dalby, but didn't get the finish, and he kind of gassed out and got beat down. And he is a very skilled grappler, world-class submissions, 3 wins by knockout and 12 wins by submission. And he's beat some legit competition in his last 3 wins, and he's a good-sized welterweight. And honestly, if he was to go and train at elevation, fix that cardio, he would probably be unstoppable. He has great trips and singles and double leg takedowns. Very strong with his body lock. Lots of nasty chokes. All submissions wins have been due to mostly guillotine chokes and rear naked chokes and arm triangles. He's very explosive and fast early. He's still young. He's going to keep getting better. He's very, very good and quick at transitioning, to that guillotine when guys shoot on him. And he's going to have the advantages on the ground here, and he'll probably have a power advantage on the feet as well because, loosa hasn't been knocking anybody out in the UFC. And Bonfim's going to be a way bigger, stronger guy here. He shows 40% striking accuracy with 59% striking defense, 71% takedown accuracy, which is really good, and 100% takedown defense. He averages 4.75 takedowns per fight, and he lands and 3.80 submissions per 15 minutes, and he lands on average 4.87 strikes per minute while absorbing 5.25. And those are pretty good numbers, man, all the way around. Pretty impressive. And he's taking on loosa. He is 30 years old. He is 5'10" with a 74-inch reach. He is 10-3, or actually 10-3-1 and 2-1-1 no contest in the UFC. Plus 275 underdog. 5 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. Never been finished, but I think he probably would have been finished if he hadn't taken the easy way out, last time he fought. He probably would have been finished in that fight. And going into that fight, I was extremely high on loosa, but I've lost all respect for him. And now looking at his wins in the UFC, I don't think, Fletcher's not in the UFC anymore. McKee has looked terrible and never won a fight in the UFC, and so maybe loosa isn't all that impressive. But I was thinking he was pretty good going into that Brian Battle fight, and Battle was just beating the crap out of him. Yeah, so Anj will have a 1.5-inch reach advantage. He does have decent kickboxing. He's probably the more technical striker, on the feet. But we saw in his last fight that he can be overwhelmed and struggles when he's being backed up. And Bonfim has a very pressure-heavy style. So outside of Bonfim gassing out late in the fight and losing, I don't really see this fight going, to Anj loosa. We also, loosa does also get tired, late in the fight. So there's a good chance that if it goes to the third round, they're both going to be pretty tired. Loosa shows 46% striking accuracy with 52% striking defense, 43% takedown accuracy with 91% takedown defense. He averages 2 takedowns per fight, and he lands on average 6.9 strikes per minute while absorbing 6.67. And we're going to see how good his takedown defense really is in this fight because Bonfim's very good. I don't think Loosa's ever fought this good of a grappler, and I'm going to take Bonfim to win this fight by submission. Submission round 2. Next up, we got Santiago Ponzinibo taking on Muslim Salikhov. It's another fight I got to track down. And even this is the co-main event, and I mean, these guys do have some exciting fights, but I mean, are they really deserving of being in the co-main event? I mean, maybe there's, a better fight they could have put co-main event, because Muslim Salikhov got knocked out very quickly in his last fight by Randy Brown, and Ponzinibo got knocked out by Kevin Holland in his last fight. But that was like in the third round, so at least he had a pretty good fight up to that point. Either way, I don't know. This card's just not that great. Ponzinibo is 37 years old. He is 6 foot tall with a 73-inch reach. He is 29-7 and 11-6 in the UFC, and he's a minus 165 favorite. 16 wins by knockout, 6 wins by submission. He's never been submitted, but has been knocked out a couple times. He was out for a few years before, and he was out for a few years, and before that, he was kind of at the top of the division. A lot of people had really high hopes, and expectations of him, and he came back off the injury after being gone for a while, and kind of struggled to get the wins. He did have close fights with Jeff Neal and Michel Pereira. Knocked out Morono, and he beat Baeza, but the Morono fight, he was losing that fight, and he landed that big punch in the third round and knocked Morono out. He will have a 3-inch reach advantage in this fight. He has great boxing, big power, and obviously the power carries over into the late rounds. And we saw that in the Morono fight, and he has a pretty solid game all around. In my opinion, he should mix in the grappling a little bit more than he does, give his opponent something more to think about than just his hands. This is a big step down in competition compared to who he's been fighting, the past few years, though. He has good basics in his boxing, good calf kicks, good lead hook, likes to walk his opponents down and make them fight. He doesn't get tired. He has decent cardio, and that will be an advantage he will have in this fight as well. Salikhov does tend to slow down in the third round. He's going to need to go out and use his reach and his jab. Salikhov likes to throw a lot of spinning attacks and kicks and stuff like that, so he'll have to watch out for those. I think Ponzinibo should go to the body with his kicks to tire out Muslim even faster, and then go for the knockout. Ponzinibo shows 42% striking accuracy with 62% striking defense, 30% takedown accuracy with 61% takedown defense. He averages half a takedown per fight, and he lands on average 4.90 strikes per minute while absorbing 4.67. He's taking on Muslim Salikhov. He is 40 years old, 5'11" with a 70-inch reach. He is 19-5 and 6-4 in the UFC, and he's a plus 135 underdog. 12 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. Most of his losses have been by finish, 2 knockouts and 2 submission losses. And not a lot of super impressive wins in the UFC. He had a split decision win over Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. His last win was over Andre Fiallo, who ended up getting knocked out like 5 times in a row. And also, Salikhov just got knocked out himself pretty quickly. He's 40 years old now. He probably has the advantage with the kicks in this fight. He's got the better kicks. He's also a very experienced kickboxer, but in my opinion, he's been losing to lesser competition than Ponzinibo. He does have big power, early in the fight. Good spin kicks, good calf kicks. I feel like not a whole lot of people really try to take Salikhov down, and if they did, they would probably have success doing that. I think Ponzinibo might look to clinch early, slow down Muslim a bit, and then go to work with his striking. If this fight gets out of the first round, I think it's Ponzinibo's fight all day. Muslim struggles when guys are pressuring him and making him back up. Muslim shows 51% striking accuracy with 63% striking defense, 41% takedown accuracy with 74% takedown defense. He averages 1.27 takedowns per fight, and he lands on average 3.36 strikes per minute while absorbing 2.94. And I'm going to go with Ponzinibo to win this fight by late TKO, third round. Next up, we got the main event. Rose Namajunas taking on Tracy Cortez on short notice. Rose Rose is 32 years old. She is 5'5" with a 65-inch reach. She is 12-6. And, sorry, I gotta find this fight again. Scroll all the way to the bottom. And 10-5 in the UFC. And, pretty much her whole career has been in the UFC. She's a minus 192 favorite. 2 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission. Rose is a multiple-time world champion. She has 2 wins over Wei Li, one of the best in the world right now. And she could arguably go back down and win that title, if she wanted, in theory anyway, because she's already beat her twice. She has spent almost her entire career in the UFC, and she's only 31. She's very well-rounded. And in all seriousness, if the Manon Fiorot fight had been 5 rounds, I think she would have won that fight. She's coming off a good win over Amanda Ribas. She has great striking, good wrestling, dangerous submission. She's the real deal, man, and I'm surprised. I was surprised to see her as an underdog against Maycee Barber, honestly. Rose Namajunas has fought the tougher competition, more the tougher competition than Barber and Cortez, both, and has the better wins. So not only does she have the championship level experience, but she has the 5-round experience, which is something that Cortez hasn't really had to deal with yet. And this being Cortez's first main event, I think. Pretty sure. I could be wrong, but I don't remember her ever main eventing a card. I think Rose will probably. I don't know, man. Rose has such a big advantage on the feet that and Cortez is going to be the one looking for the takedowns probably, and I don't know, man. I think Rose has a way of ending up on top whenever people are trying to take her down or take her down. She did that to Reba several times. So I don't know what approach Cortez is really going to use here, because I don't think she's going to have success with her wrestling in this fight. Rose shows 42% striking accuracy with 63% striking defense, 48% takedown accuracy with 59% takedown defense. She averages 1.39 takedowns per fight, and she lands on average 3.69 strikes per minute while absorbing 3.51. Rose has the clean technical striking, good footwork, good at setting up her shots, good head movement. And in her last fight, like I said, every time Ribas took her down or tried to jump on a submission, Rose ended up on top every time in the dominant position. And Tracy Cortez is 30 years old. She is 5'5" with a 65.5-inch reach. She's 11-1 and 5-0 in the UFC, and she's a plus 167 underdog. 1 win by knockout, 1 win by submission. Not a big finisher. Her only loss was by submission. She's been in the UFC since 2019 and has only fought 5 times. Not a finisher, like I said. Never had a finish in the UFC. She's never fought 5 rounds. She's known for her wrestling. The level of competition that she's fought has not even been remotely close to, Rose. And I think Cortez's first 3 wins in the UFC were over terrible competition. Her last 2 wins against Gatto and jasudavicius, while they are good fighters, but they aren't like high up in the rankings yet. So this is a fight that, Cortez probably wouldn't have gotten this fight, and probably shouldn't have gotten it if it wasn't on short notice and they weren't desperate, for this main event, So, Rose is way better on the feet for sure. Probably better everywhere, honestly. Rose should win this fight. The only thing I could see messing up this fight for Rose is Rose was training for Maycee Barber, who's a striker, not a wrestler, and now Rose is fighting a wrestler. But I'm willing to bet that Rose was most likely gonna be working some wrestling, against Barber. So I'm sure she did a lot of wrestling in this camp. I'm gonna take Rose to win by decision here. Maybe a late submission if Cortez gets really tired, but I could see Rose just kind of dancing around the outside and outstriking Cortez for 5 rounds as well. So that's it for my picks, guys. There's one thing I want to start doing on my videos, because they change stuff up on Tapology. Like they normally have predictions down here. They don't have them there anymore, but they got them down here so we can look at them all at once. Namajunas is highly favored. Ponzinibo is highly favored. Bonfim's highly favored. Alhassan. Silva's slightly favored over dober. There's not. I mean, I went against these 2 here. These are my main ones here that everybody's going with Joshua Van. Everybody's going with Montel Jackson. I went against those. I'm one of the 13% and 22% who disagree with that. So we'll see how that goes. But I probably really should, man. I found something the other day that, well, actually somebody sent it to me. There's a channel, and I don't remember what it's called. I have to go back and look at it. But these guys go through and they keep track of all the fight prediction channels and stuff like that, and they see who got the most right or whatever. And like that's cool that they do that. I'm not really sure how I feel about it. I mean, I don't know that. I feel like maybe like they're letting all of the channels do all the hard work or whatever. But I don't know. I get what they're doing though. They're trying to put people on the best channels or whatever. And I haven't watched the one I saw was for the Saudi Arabia card, and there were so many changes on that card and stuff that But either way, I don't really take the picks so much as seriously as I do my bets. I'm more worried about the money side of things. So that's why, I think whereas most people, when they're having trouble picking a fight, most people are just going to go with the favorite. Well, I'm the opposite because I'm more worried about money and value. So whereas most people will be like, oh, it's a close fight, but I'll go with the favorite, I do the opposite. So maybe I shouldn't do that because if you're looking at it from the amount of picks I get right, I guess that can make me look bad if I get a lot of them wrong by doing that. But I'm more concerned with my bets and giving good bets out and stuff like that. So, yeah, so I might be hurting myself, on that side of things with the picks because I'll just pick an underdog because I like underdogs. So, but anyway, as far as my bets for this card, don't have a whole lot. Pull this up. Yeah, so I got a 2-fight parlay that's Luana Santos with her grappling advantage and bonfim with his grappling advantage. That's a plus 105. It's a 1-unit play. And then I have a really small play on John Silva at plus 135, just a $100 play. So as long as my Santos and bonfim play hit, I'll be good on the money there. And as far as a parlay, like I said, I only put one in. Just not a lot on this card that I'm excited about, really. But got a 6-fight parlay that's Namajunas, Petroski, alhassan, Santos, Rodriguez, bonfim. It's a plus 988. I would have John Silva on there, but I had to put my play on John Silva on Bet Online because they don't have his lineup on Bovada, which is where I do my parlays on. So yeah, I mean, maybe I'll redo this and add Silva on it later on if I remember. But either way, so I mean, not a whole lot on this card. Trying to keep it simple with the parlays from now on, and I don't think there's anything else I need to talk about, as far as I remember. I don't know. Hopefully the UFC will start getting their stuff together, and all these changes and stuff on these cards will stop happening because driving me crazy, man. It's constantly fights just dropping out, and if y'all have been watching my channel a long time, y'all know that anytime a fight gets changed or something, I'm always the one that has money on it, so sometimes I do my videos 2 weeks early. I'll have like 3 or 4 bets, and then 3 of them will all get changed, and then none of it will count except for one bet, and then that'll be the one that loses or some shit, you never know. But it's crazy though. I mean, crazy that they were able to put together a Lopez fight, pretty much on the day of the fight to save the co-main event. I'm glad that they did. I'm glad that we still got that fight. But either way, it was crazy from a betting standpoint because I was like, man, I was really hoping that I had some money on Lopez, and they switched out Dan Ige. I was a little bit scared, but I was like, fuck it, I'll throw a play on him. I'll go for it. I want to win some money, some good money this card. So glad it worked out for me, man. But I'll get back on schedule, guys, and everything. And I appreciate y'all for being here. Thank you for caring what I have to say. Next time I won't be so tired and out of it, but I just really wanted to get this video out for you guys. So if anything changes on this card, I'll put it on my social medias, or I'll post on YouTube in the community tab as well. So thank you for being here, man. I appreciate you guys. Y'all have a good one. I'm out of here.